May 1946. Prague. Thousands filled the streets, climbing rooftops and walls, waiting for a single moment. The fall of a man who once ruled these lands with terror. Karl Hermann Frank, the feared Nazi official known as the Butcher of Lidice. And on this day, his fate would finally be sealed. Before the crowds filled the streets, Karl Hermann Frank stood here, in the People's Court of Prague, calm, expressionless, as the charges were read aloud. He was accused of mass executions, brutal reprisals, and the destruction of entire villages across Czechoslovakia. Women, men, and children, all victims of the terror he helped unleash. The evidence was overwhelming. Witnesses testified, documents were presented, and the judges reached a single conclusion. Karl Hermann Frank was found guilty on all counts, and sentenced to death by hanging. So who was Karl Hermann Frank? Before the trial, before the crowds, he was one of the most powerful Nazis in Czechoslovakia. Born in the Sudetenland, he joined the Nazi Party early and rose quickly through the SS. Ambitious, loyal, and ruthless, Frank became one of Reinhard Heydrich's closest allies during the occupation. He controlled the police, intelligence, and security forces across the region. And under his authority, fear became a weapon. Executions, mass arrests, and collective punishment, all carried out in the name of Nazi rule. 4 years, the people of Czechoslovakia lived under the shadow of his orders. But the moment that sealed Frank's name in history came in June 1942, after the assassination of Reinhard Heydrich. As acting authority in the region, Frank demanded a brutal retaliation. And under his orders, the village of Lidice was erased from the map. All men of the village were rounded up and shot. Women were deported to concentration camps. And most of the children never came back. Houses were burned, graves destroyed, and even the name Lidice was banned from being spoken. It became one of the most infamous acts of Nazi terror in Czechoslovakia, and the reason the people of this country would never forget Karl Hermann Frank. When the war finally ended in 1945, Karl Hermann Frank attempted to escape. He shed his uniform and tried to blend in among the fleeing German forces. But it didn't work. American troops recognized him and arrested him immediately. And the people of Czechoslovakia demanded only one thing: that Frank be returned to face the consequences of his years of terror. He was handed over to Prague, where his trial would be held in public, and where thousands waited to see justice take its first step. May 22, 1946. The crowd outside Pankrak prison had grown into the thousands. People stood on rooftops, walls, and balconies, waiting for the final act of justice. Inside the prison, Karl Hermann Frank wrote his last words. He showed no emotion and no remorse. Shortly before noon, guards entered his cell. Frank stood, calm and silent, and was led down the corridor toward the yard. As he stepped onto the scaffold, the crowd fell almost completely quiet. The noose was placed around his neck. The man once feared across the region now stood alone, facing the consequences of his own orders. The signal was given. The platform dropped. And with it, the chapter of Karl Hermann Frank came to an end. Karl Hermann Frank's execution became a symbol of post-war justice. The people of Czechoslovakia saw his death as the end of an era of fear. Lidice was rebuilt, but the scars of what happened there were never forgotten. To this day, the name of the village stands as a reminder of the brutality he helped unleash, and of the price paid when justice finally arrived.